our meeting right to on the agenda, number 4, consent agenda, A through D. If there's any objections or questions, you'll be so approved. Any questions from the board? I'm sorry, Cheryl?
Dan, all of these personnel, these additions, these are filling positions that were currently empty, like especially with all the aid department? Okay. I assume that, but I just want to verify.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, informational items. Do we need approval on that? We're good. Right, Dan? Okay. Information items, construction update, completed projects in progress report.
So I will be pulling up a slideshow from Nexus, and Brent Warren is going to be on our call, so he's going to be doing the audio version for this, and I will be running the PowerPoint.
So you've seen and met Brent before. We put him earlier in the agenda tonight because he's joining us remotely. So he's going to take it away in just a second here. So welcome, Brent.
All right. Thanks, Dan and Andy. So we have a PowerPoint with a lot of pictures here for the update for you. Some of it, last time I gave a update in person was a while ago, and when the meeting format changed, I know we've sent through a few PowerPoints with pictures, and I didn't give an update. So some of this might be a little redundant, but hopefully it's a good reminder of things we've done and the new things and new pictures and new progress that you get to see. And just everything's going really well. We did a lot of work this summer and through early this fall. I think between this summer and this fall, I think we touched 7 buildings. So lots of different things going on at lots of different buildings, lots of good progress. We finished up a few projects, so students, staff, teachers, they've gotten to start getting their hands on some of the new projects and some of the new spaces, so that's really exciting for everyone. So we'll just kind of run through here for the agenda tonight. Work that's progressing at is finished at Shephard Hills, work that's progressing at the high school, work that's progressing at Carolton, and work that's progressing at Cedar Hills, and then just a brief overview of the few things that we have coming up. We've moved through a lot of the referendum projects, so we're getting closer to the end of our work, so that's exciting to see too. So Andy, you can move forward. So starting with Shephard Hills, just a reminder of what that parking lot space and that north end of that building looked like before we started. It was just a barren parking lot. We did the gym addition, which in some of the previous slideshows you've seen some of the pictures of the gym addition, setting the precast walls, doing the brick around the exterior of the building. Next slide, Andy, is some of the HVAC equipment and all the piping work that goes into the new addition in the buildings there. A lot of, as you guys know, a lot goes into a construction project that not everyone can see, all the pipes and the wiring and the coordination and everything. So not everyone gets to see all that behind the scenes type of stuff. Here's a shot of the inside of the gym before, when it was all painted out, but before the wooden floor was in. Special thanks to Mike Stile, the custodian from Edgewood. He did the painting of the logo on the wall there, so it turned out really, really awesome. Here's a shot of the contractors installing the maple wood floor, the plywood subfloor, and then the maple wood floor for the gym floor itself. Here's a finished shot of the gym with the finished, sanded, stained, and polished floor, the basketball hoops, all that good stuff. So the school is in the space now. Starting at the beginning of this school year, they started occupying the gym and the bathrooms and the couple offices that are in the new addition. So it's a really great space that they've taken over. Here's a shot just of the new entrance to the gym. We got a big new sidewalk entrance there. The parking lot got reworked at Shephard Hills, so the playground did move. The playground used to be where the gymnasium is now, and then the playground is now in the center of the parking lot. We have a new drive loop with a new drop-off area with this entrance to the gym, so I think that's working well for the school. Really improved the safety of the parking lot there. Now getting into the remodel, which we completed this summer at Shephard Hills. So this all is work that the next slides here for Shephard Hills is all work that was done between June and August to prepare for the school year that started this fall. At Shepherd Hills, all of the interior walls were completely removed. Shepherd Hills had what we call demountable partitions, which are like metal walls that are kind of held together with brackets and bolts. They're not very good for sound separation between the classrooms. So those got completely removed, and we built brand new walls to separate the classrooms and the library and the office spaces. Here's some pictures of all the new studs that went in for all that. Here's a picture of some of the drywall going up with the finishing taping of the joints in the drywall. You can see the pipes and the HVAC work we did in those pictures. Here's a picture of the bathrooms that got remodeled at Shepherd Hills. That was an exciting part of the project because it wasn't actually supposed to be part of the project to start. And then when we started, we realized some of the bathrooms really needed some attention. And through the competitive bidding process that we've done on the project, Shepherd Hills did come in under budget to begin with, and we had some extra money, some extra dollars in the project, and we were able to decide to go forward and refinish the bathrooms as well, which really is a market improvement on what was there for bathrooms. So we got all new wall tile in the bathrooms at Shepherd Hills. Plumbing fixtures were reset on those new walls. So it was really a great improvement that we were able to add to the project throughout the project, working with Dan and Andy and Steve Rohde, the district staff there. Just be able to add that to a project is always a great thing to do throughout a project. Here's a finished shot of the bathrooms before the ceiling was finished, but when the wall tile was finished. Classrooms at Shepherd Hills, so we got all the new walls for all the classrooms, and then also new ceilings and wall painting in all the classrooms. And then the lower level classrooms got new flooring. So here you can see a before and after of just the updated freshness and the new color scheme and the new look of the classrooms. That picture was kind of gray and kind of distorted. It looks real nice in person. We also in the classrooms got new sinks and casework for the sinks. So that was a nice upgrade. Each classroom got some of the old stuff was pretty worn through and gone through its life. Here's another shot of just more interior classrooms with the teachers' final setup in the spaces. So really brightened and freshened up all the spaces with the new LED lighting. Another part of the project here, you see the kitchen. The kitchen got new floor, walls painted, and a new ceiling. So went from an old VCT floor that was a little beat up to a new ceramic hard tile floor that's more sanitary, more cleanly, and just a really nice upgrade for the kitchen there as well. Here's some shots of the library at Shepherd Hills. We got new flooring, new ceiling, new lights, walls painted, new walls along with all the classrooms in the library. So just a nice new fresh layout for the library. Also in the library, we were able to change the layout a little bit from what the existing was, and you got new multimedia breakout spaces now in the library. This used to be just part of the library and kind of had some bookshelves that separated it off before. Now there's real walls that separate it as an actual collaborative learning space. Here's some of the breakout spaces in the library and office, and a small group breakout space. So Shepherd Hills turned out really nice.
Sorry, Brent, I was just going to interrupt you for a moment. My favorite space that's remodeled is the former cafeteria of Shepherd Hills to what they've done, or I should say cafeteria gym, to now just being the cafeteria is probably the best space I've seen remodeled, and truly is like a night and day from what it was to where it is now. So just to add a little bit to Shepherd Hills here.
Yeah, you're right, Andy. I forgot to throw in a picture of that, but it is a great space. We added skylights in there to bring in more natural light. And new flooring, painted the walls, new cloud ceilings in there. That space really was transformative from what it used to be. Moving on to the high school. So high school is obviously one of the bigger projects, one of the more visible, more exciting projects. We have kind of multiple different phases of the high school project. We have 2 years of interior remodeling, one which was finished this summer. The second phase of interior remodeling is coming next summer. And we also had the auto shop portion of the high school, and then we have the main auditorium and tech ed classroom portion of the high school. So you can go ahead, Andy. Kind of the first thing we had to do at the high school was pave the way for the place for the new building to go. So there was a lot of pre-work at the high school and a lot of work with the district staff and the high school staff of figuring out, okay, where this building is going to go is where our traffic currently goes, is where the parking lot currently is. So we had a lot of pre-planning where the half the parking lot we built half the parking lot earlier than the project last summer, along with that soccer field, as a way to prepare for the new high school addition, so we could reroute the traffic into that new parking lot. There was also a lot of storm sewer, sanitary sewer pipes that come out of that end of the building that would have been underneath the new addition, so we had to move those before we could start. So a lot of site prep went into the high school project that had to be done to pave the way for the new building. Here's some of the asphalt paving that we did to reroute the traffic to be able to be ready for when the school started this fall. Here's some pictures of the contractors working on all that storm sewer and sanitary sewer piping that I was talking about. This is a picture of the parking lot work, concrete curbs, new light poles that went in near the entrance to the football fields. Here's concrete asphalt paving that was done. This is right outside the new auto shop. We also paved all in front of the entrance to the football field. New sidewalks all around that parking lot there on the east end of the building near the entrance to the football field. Here's a new entrance to the football field that was completed in August that was ready for the football season here. So that's a nice new entrance point to the football stadium. Moving on to the auto shop portion of the high school. So the auto shop was an addition that is off the east end of the building. It connects to the existing auto shop and added more square footage to the east into what was the parking lot area. This is a shot of the foundations. Here's a shot of the masonry walls going up. Here's with the masonry walls finished before the brick was put on. Here's a shot just of the contractors working on the steel beams for the roof. Here's the exterior brick going up. Here's the brick when it was finished. Here's a shot of the inside space. As you can kind of see it starting to evolve with the steel roof is on, the rubber roof is finished. Some of the contractors started working on the piping on the inside. Here so you can start to see some of the plumbing piping on the inside. Here's a good shot of the auto shop. Really had a lot of mechanical and electrical things that went into it. There's a full vehicle exhaust system, so you can kind of see in this picture there's hose reels on the ceiling that the students can pull those hose reels down, connect them right to the exhaust of the vehicles, and that safely extracts the exhaust of the vehicle away out of the building so they can run vehicles inside of the building. There's a lot of plumbing pipes. There are a lot of pipes, HVAC and plumbing pipes in the ceiling of that auto shop that took a lot of coordination to fit in there. Here's the shots of the new vehicle lifts being installed. And then here's a shot of the outside now that's completed. Turned out to be a really nice space. Here's the inside now that it's completed. This space has been turned over to the school, so they are able to use it already. I'm not sure if students have been in there yet. I believe they have, but with just the schedule of school, I'm not sure if students have been in there yet, but the teacher's got some cars in there. He's been using the lifts and getting everything prepped, so it's turned out to be a really great space. It's going to be great for the students to get some hands-on learning. Moving on to the auditorium portion of the project. This again is a rendering of what it will look like once we're completed. This shot of the working on the foundations that we started earlier in June this year. Started the project really in earnest in June after we did all the site work that I was talking about. Here's some more. The concrete contractors digging the footings, working on the foundations, pouring concrete for the footings. Here's the masonry contractors working on laying the block for the new walls. It's a pretty big masonry job. They probably had between 20 and 25 guys on site all summer long. Really did a great job moving along with putting the walls up really fast, which some of you probably seen when you're driving by. Here's more shots of some of the exterior brick going up. Here's where the contractor was installing the precast wall panels. So a good portion of the project is masonry walls, but also the real tallest parts where the auditorium ceiling is the highest was precast walls. So this is the crane taking those panels and tipping them up and setting those up for the construction of the walls. Here again, more shots of the contractor installing those walls. You can see the bracing that they installed to temporarily hold them while we're putting the whole puzzle together. Here's more shots. This is actually looking at this would be standing on what will be the stage looking back out towards what will be the audience area. You can see the masonry, the contractor working on the masonry walls on the inside of there. You can start to see the darker band in there is some of the decorative block that's going to be in the inside of the auditorium. It's a good finish that lasts forever, that never has to be repainted. So it's a great thing the architect and the district decided to add to the project. That's a good maintenance-free, but still a very high-end looking type of finish. It looks more expensive than it is. So it's a great burnished block is what it's called. So have some of that in the interior. Here you can see some more of that dark block that's going to be on the inside of it. Here's some concrete contractor working away on some of the footings that will end up being underneath of the raised part of the auditorium seating. Here's the orchestra pit. So in front of the stage, we will have a submerged pit for the orchestra and instrument players to go into, so the people in the audience can look over top of them and not obstruct their view of the stage at all. So that's a nice feature that'll be in the auditorium. Here's the orchestra pit now with the concrete walls finished, and you can see to the right is where the stage will be, and then to the left out of the picture is where the audience will be. Here's a shot looking, now standing back where the audience would be looking at the stage. You can see the precast walls that have been set. You can see on the top there's kind of a tan band. That's the finished exposed part of the precast that'll actually be above the roof. And then the gray part of the precast is what will be inside the building that'll eventually get covered with drywall or wood paneling or paint or what else you have for the finishes on the inside of the building. You can see the opening of the stage there. Here's on the left was one, gave a tour to Miss Mongan and some of the other administration from the high school and some of the district level high school, or some of the district administration people. We gave a tour to them to see so they could see the progress about a month ago. On the right, you can see some of the steel contractor working on the steel roof for the stage. This gives you a little perspective on the size and grandeur of the project. That those two big forklifts are right inside the stage working, and they don't even look that big in the picture. So it's going to be a great, nice big space once it's all completed. Here's a shot of the guys pouring the concrete floor for the stage. So this is at the very back of the stage, looking out across the stage. You can see where the audience will be behind them. Here's a shot of the main lobby of the auditorium. So this is on the very south end of the project near Putes. The curved masonry walls where the lobby will as an arced pattern on the back of the stage, on the back of the audience seating, I should say. Next shot is the lobby again with some of the precast creating the ceiling of that lobby. Here's standing with your back to Putes, kind of pretty close to the sidewalk. What it will look like on the front. This will be kind of the main face of the auditorium project. When you're driving down Putes, all these openings will be the windows that look into the lobby. Here's now getting into some of the tech ed classroom areas. This is closer to the existing building. The auditorium would be off to your right. The existing building would be to your left in this photo. Here's more working on the tech ed classroom areas. You can see all the electrical pipes that are going in the floor. The picture on the right is actually the metals lab, and that's where all the welding booths are going to be. So all those pipes are all the electric feeds that will go to feed all the welders. That will eventually be in the center of this room here on the right. Here's, I think this is the woods lab actually now with the concrete floor poured with the steel roof on. The rubber roof is on now. You can see some of the HVAC equipment is being hung. Some of the plumbing pipes are starting to be hung from the ceiling. So we got getting this space real enclosed and starting to really go gangbusters with the mechanical, electrical contractors now. Here's more shots of, I think this is maybe the construction lab maybe. You can see again, ceilings, this metal ceiling and the pipes going and contractors working on that. Now moving into the remodel portion of the high school, like I said earlier, we kind of had two phases for the remodel portion of the high school. Phase one, which was one done this summer, is actually the smaller of the two phases, but we did do a lot of good work this summer. Here's a shot of the main hallway that's just to the back of the main gym. So the main gym would be to your left in this picture. The trophy cases would be to the right in this picture, and the cafeteria is in the background. You can just barely see the doors to the cafeteria. So this hallway got new ceilings, new lights, new flooring. Here's a shot of the new flooring finished, the new ceilings in, new LED lighting in. It's a really bright, nice space. Here's more shots of that same hallway with the flooring and lighting, and you can see the cafeteria doors there in the distance. Here's the cafeteria expansion. So we took the masonry wall that was at the west end of the cafeteria and knocked out that wall, took over just a multi-use kind of storage room that was behind it and expanded the cafeteria to the west. In this picture, you can see all the shoring posts that we had to put in to hold up the roof while we took the masonry wall down and added some steel to hold up the roof and like that. Here's a finished shot of the cafeteria expansion. The blue wall behind you is the new wall that's now the back of the cafeteria. That's a good 30 feet farther to the west than it used to be. Got some of the monitors up in the cafeteria and the flooring extended through into the new space. Here's a shot of the main hallway lobby right outside of the main office. The main competition gym would be to your right, and the main office would be to the left in this picture. New flooring, painted the walls in here. So just updated and freshened the look of the space. The main office we also remodeled this summer. So here's a shot of what it was before we started construction with the furniture was moved out. You can see some of the spots in the floor, how the carpet was wore out, and it was due for an update of finishes in the main office. Here's the new desk, the new front desk when you walk in the main office. We got the new carpet, we got the new millwork, nice new fresh look on the casework and the new design. It's much more open now when you walk in the main office. It's more inviting and more welcoming when you walk in with the two new desks, and took out that one wall that used to be to the left when you walked in. So really freshened up the space and opened it up a little bit. It's really nice in the main office now. Here's some shots of the library. So in the library, we got new flooring, new ceiling, new LED lighting in there. Really freshened up the space in there. Here's a shot with the new carpet, the new ceiling, new linear lighting. We're finished with the library with the furniture back in. We also did some work in the lower level athletic locker rooms. The pool, some of the locker rooms by the pool area, and then also I think what's mostly probably known as the football locker room. We did lighting in there. We did painting of the walls. We also refinished a bunch of the tile in there. So you can see on the left the before picture of the tile where it was kind of dirty in the grout, and there was a lot of patch holes from different things that have been hung on the walls over the years. And on the right is the new chemical treatment that was put on the walls. It's really a nice, clean, new look. And then the middle picture is a shot of the shower room, which used to be all like the tile on the left, is now all like the tile on the right. Here's just a shot of the athletic training room. Walls got painted, new LED lighting in there, just brightened up the space. Some of the bathrooms, so in what I call the student block, kind of the square where all the classrooms are, there's bathrooms in each corner of that block. All those bathrooms got updated with the tile got refinished on those walls. The walls got painted, new ceilings, new lights, new hand washing stations. We did some ADA upgrades on the doors. There's little wing walls that kind of blocked some of the entrances. We removed some of those wing walls to create more ADA access to the bathrooms. Here's a shot. A nice thing that happened this summer was the Knights construction class. We were able to get them to come in and get a tour of the auditorium work. So our superintendent, Kyle Rovers, took them around the whole auditorium project during this summer. They got to experience what a big construction site looks like. Also, part of this class is Trevor Hastings. Wanted to point out he worked with Nexus as an intern with us this summer. So he worked on the high school auditorium project all summer long, hand in hand with myself and Kyle Rovers, our superintendent. So he got a good experience of what construction management really looks like during the summer here. Hopefully he's hoping to go into the trades when he graduates. So he got some good experience with some of the contractors this summer, getting to know some of them and seeing what construction is really all about. Moving on to Carolton Elementary, we did the gym addition at Carolton starting this spring. Some of these pictures you've seen before. I think my last update, we were just starting Carolton. So we had to demo off a little vestibule off the end of that building. Continued on with prepping the site and digging the footings for the new gym addition, and the main office is also moving in Carolton down to the new addition. Here's some of the concrete foundations. Here's the masonry contractor working on the block walls. Also precast walls we got for the gym walls on the Carolton project. So here's the contractor with the big crane setting the precast walls. Here's the masons continuing on working on the office area of the new addition. Here's the gym with you can see the metal deck and the joists for the roof is on, and the bracing for the precast walls is still in there. Here's the masonry continuing on in the office area. Here's where the exterior brick was put on for the office area. Here's some shots of the HVAC equipment and the electrical equipment that goes in to run all the HVAC equipment. It's more of the back of house stuff that not everyone gets to see every day. Here's the gym with the ceiling painted, the basketball hoops in, the walls painted, sound panels are up on the walls. Pretty much all that's left at this point was to finish the wood floor. Here's another shot of just looking the other way in the gym. Here is the office addition, shot of the workroom, the teacher workroom with the mail slots. On the right is the new conference room that's in the new addition. Here's the new front desk for the new main office that's in the new addition, gets the new secure entry. Here's the new nurses room that's in the new addition. Here's the lobby area. The gym would be just back to your right behind this picture. The bathrooms are behind you. The main entrance and the main office are in front of you. The existing school will be to the left. Here's the new rear entrance where the kids will use to come back in from recess on the playground and stuff. Here's a new main entrance. The blue area really highlights the new front door and will help people coming to the school know that's the main entrance. We'll really set that off with the new sidewalk. There's another shot of that new entrance. Now getting into the remodel portion of Carolton. So we did complete the remodel portion of Carolton also this summer. Here's an existing classroom with the furniture was just removed, but you can see the old ceiling, the old lights, the old wall paint, the old floor tile. Here's with the ceilings removed, some of the walls starting to get demoed. At Carolton, we also did ADA upgrades to the doors. So a lot of classroom doors the door got blown out, the masonry wall got blown out, widened and reworked so that each classroom now has a legal ADA entrance. Here's some more shots of the HVAC piping going in. You can see the more walls getting reworked. Here's now getting to the finishes of the remodel, so new casework. At Carolton, they have set up where each classroom shares a little workroom between the two classrooms. So in those workrooms, we got new cabinets, new sinks, new casework. The bathrooms at Carolton got redone as well. The kindergarten bathrooms got all new finishes with new wall tiles. Here's the main bathrooms. The main bathrooms, we kept the wall tile, but we were able to refinish them with that same chemical treatment that we did at the high school locker rooms. So again, before and after of just the new freshness of saving the money of being able to keep the tile, but you still get a good finish with a new, nice, brighter look to it. The Carolton got new boiler system, new pumps. So this is the boiler room. Some of the piping work that was done. Here's a corridor at Carolton. Got new flooring, new ceiling, new lights, walls painted. Really freshened up the look. All new doors in all the classrooms. Here's some of the cubbies in the classrooms on the left. On the right again is the corridor. And these are shots of some of the classrooms with the furniture back in, with the teachers all set back up. They did move in right ready in time for school to start this fall. Here's again another shot of the classroom with the new cubbies and the new doors and the walls. Again, another classroom shot. The library at Carolton also got reworked. We got new flooring, painted the walls, new ceiling in there. Carolton had some soffits that were really low and kind of made the space feel smaller than it was. We tore out all those soffits and were able to raise the ceilings. And we had to redo some of the HVAC ductwork to be able to raise the ceilings, but it really opened up the space. The new windows you see in there are also an addition. Before there was no windows in there, we cut holes in the wall to add those windows. Really brightened up the space. Now moving on to Cedar Hills.
Brent, can I just interrupt you for one moment?
Yeah.
The gym at Carolton and the office space will be ready to go. We're trying to transition into that over our winter break time. So what we would normally be off for that week or week and a half, it was originally scheduled to be movable or moved into around spring break time. And so they did a great job really speeding up the process to get what we thought our students in using a gym in a much earlier time frame. So we'll obviously be talking about that later tonight, but we had anticipated having them in around spring break, and we'll be able to get them in right after the Christmas and New Year's holiday.
So moving on to Cedar Hills. Cedar Hills, the remodel portion is coming yet this coming summer of 21, but we started working on the new gym and new office addition. Same as Carolton, it gets the main office new addition in Cedar Hills. So here you see the additions we're working on this fall. Here's a piping contractor doing some of the underground piping work that goes along with the new addition. Here's working on the masonry walls. More shots of the masonry walls going up for the gym and the office addition. Here's the end of the gym looking back at the existing building. Here's the contractor started working on putting up the brick. Here's the metal joist going in for the gym area. And now you can see the metal decking is on the gym. The rubber roof is now on the gym. Here's the sprayed on air and vapor barrier, it's called, that goes between the block and the brick that keeps the water out of the building. That's all installed, waiting and now ready for the contractor to start putting the brick on. So this week the contractor is really going to go full force on laying brick. Here's in the office area, the precast roof in the office is on, and some of the pipes are starting to be run for plumbing and HV and electric. So that's pretty much the pictures of all the work that has been done this summer. So a lot going on, as I was saying, a lot of stuff we're really proud of that really went really well. Upcoming work for summer of 21, Cedar Hills, the remodel, as I was saying, the remodel is scheduled to come up this coming summer of summer 21. The gym and the Cedar Hills gym and office addition will be completed. We'll probably be done with it this spring, but there's pipes and stuff that have to feed through the existing remodel that go into the new gym area. So that new gym and office won't be occupiable until we complete the remodel portion of the summer of 21. So both Cedar Hills will get all their new areas at the end of summer 21. And then the high school will do remodel phase 2 from summer of 21, which includes the band and orchestra areas when we're infilling the stage area in the auxiliary gym, remodeling the auxiliary gym, the science labs, the culinary labs, that all get work, and that'll all be in phase 2, summer 21. And then the high school auditorium and education center, that will be done the fall of 21. That'll kind of really be the last project to finish up and kind of finish with the crowning jewel there at the high school. So really excited to finish up all those last projects.
We also have to touch up the existing office at Carolton, so that's getting remodeled. Obviously, that couldn't have been done last summer, as we still needed to have an office space, so that will get done. And we're having a playable surface, exterior surface, done at West Middle School, so taking that unjointed field that's behind there and making it a usable surface for both youth programs and for West Middle School to have an exterior PE space. So any questions?
Yeah, Andy, I know back when Meadowview was done, everything had gotten kind of spruced up, taken care of, with the exception of some of the bathrooms. Is that still on a whole to-do list, or
Yep. So Steve and Brent and I have kind of a running list of items. So some of those have been prioritized. One of those was the field at West Middle School behind there. For the cost and what we could benefit from it. That kind of moved into the let's get it now time frame.
Okay.
Some of the other pieces, for instance, the bathrooms at Meadowview, they're still usable in their current state.
Right.
And so we're trying to prioritize things that, like, where do they fall in the rundown list or where do they fall in the non-usable list first?
Right.
And we'll work through that. But we do have a list of priorities and are trying to fund as many of those as we can because we have come in under bid overall holistically on our projects.
Okay. Thank you. It looks great. Everything looks absolutely wonderful. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great.
Any other questions? All right. Hey, thanks, Brent. I appreciate you jumping on and walking us through this.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Have a good
Brent.
night.
Take care.
Next on the agenda is the upcoming school board tentative.
Next on our agenda is the tentative upcoming school board agendas.
So, board, in front of me, I have slated for November 23rd at our committee meeting. We'll talk about procedures for weather closings and delay situations. We've learned a lot in remote learning over the last few months, so this is a procedure we can touch up. So you'll hear from Mr. Krenick or Mr. Thielen and myself at that point. We'll talk state accountability measures, specifically ACT and advanced placement, and we'll have an update from Heather Ryan and this youth programs department. We'll also talk October budget, so you hear from Andy again. When we reach December, Scott Harler will join us for a fall athletics and activities review, and we'll talk middle school science and social studies with Mr. Krenick and company. We will likely also have additional information on each of these dates regarding the phases of instruction and a couple other things that come up as we approach the holidays here. So, but these are the things we're going to see.
Okay, thanks. All right. Next on the agenda is the public input. Recess from a portion of the meetings to entertain comments or questions on agenda items. You can kindly fill out the public comment registration form. I do have a couple here. Next on the agenda is Jennifer.
What do you stand on the line and speak whatever? You can give it to me.
So I'm very familiar to all of the school board members. I've been at most of your meetings, if not all, speaking. And since this is being live streamed, I just want to put it on record because I was attacked very viciously for bringing my daughter's situation with mental health forward. She has my full support. She's actually watching the live stream as we speak. She has texted me constantly from the beginning of this meeting. So she has not entered the school doors. She has mental health issues. And I emailed all of you about mental health in the school system. And I got something like, well, I'm not going to mention names because I don't go there, but I spoke to a guidance counselor, and the mental health has not skyrocketed. Baloney. I'm calling your bluff because I fact-checked that. Mental health has skyrocketed in Oak Creek school districts, not only with the high school, the middle school, and unfortunately, it is hitting the elementary now. I want to know, with true transparency, what is this school district going to do about mental health with our kids? The longer you drag this virtual learning out, what is happening to these children? They're being left behind. I'm here to speak about mental health. A lot of parents will talk to you about numbers and education. Everything is very important. I want to know about transparency. You know what? I drove to the NGC tonight. Talk about transparency. Why are you not sending emails to all of the parents in this district, where the meeting is, what time, and where it's going to be held at. Start having transparency with all of us parents. We deserve it, and the children of Oak Creek deserve this. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Dr. Rohan Sylvia.
Hi, I want to thank the board for letting me talk. So personally, my uncle passed away from COVID-19, and I just want to remind everyone that it is a horrible, horrible way to die. He had struggled to breathe for hours and died all by himself in isolation, so it's very real to me. His only exposure was to his neighbor's children. Schools that are open are places where a bunch of little vectors are running around and bringing the virus home. So it is true that the odds of children suffering are pretty low, but some kids are high risk. And high school in particular is a really dangerous idea, I think. I think all appreciate teachers more than ever. I want to assure you that nobody wants the kids out of the house more than a lot of parents that we know. But I don't think it's worth the risk. The risk, also what's going on is, we appreciate teachers more, and they're at risk from opening back up. You can't make a high school safe. The assumption here is that you can get hundreds of teenagers to follow simple directions, and that's extremely unrealistic, I think. So if you just take a look at the numbers are too high to open up for business as usual, because the situation is not business as usual. The risks, I think, are just too high, and we just need to wait it out a little bit more. Kids have gotten better at learning online. Teachers have gotten better at teaching online. I think it might be different for the elementary school kids, but for the older kids, we should stick it out. We should stick it out with staying at home and being safe. They can catch up, and the teachers are getting better. Thank you for letting me speak.
Leah Mickelson Link.
Thank you. Good evening. I was here at the last meeting when you voted to return the children back to virtual learning. I spoke very much on the statistics at that time about how the virus significantly affects children at a much lower risk. They're a lot less risky. There's other things that you need to consider with the children, such as their mental health needs, as well as their social and emotional interaction. I'm not going to readdress those, you know those things, but what I want to talk to you about today is, first of all, a day in the life of virtual learning for children. I've got two in the district who are doing virtual right now. Today I listened to my second grader spend 1 hour of his live time with papers where the teacher was simply directing him about which paper to put into which folder. That was 1 hour of his live time, and they only have a couple hours of live time in a day. Today, my fourth grader didn't have his teacher there for virtual learning, which has become a pretty routine pattern. He does not have things to do the majority of the day. And this is something that I have observed, and also when he goes to daycare, his daycare teachers have observed that as well. So I have very strong concerns about the preparedness that my kids are going to have as they move forward in this district. Because right now, the education that they're receiving is not optimal and is not satisfactory. In addition, today, my husband and I ran twice to this district office here because my son's computer keys didn't work. So we took the first one in, brought home the replacement. That one didn't work. I came back. I have a third one now. They didn't have the right one to give me, so I took one that he'll use tomorrow, and I'll be back here again tomorrow to get another computer. In addition to that, there are connection issues. I know Edward last week, we had a time when I think all of their teachers had an outage. My children get kicked off frequently from their virtual live sessions. For some reason, oftentimes when my second grader is trying to answer a question, the teacher can't hear him. I can hear him answering, and the teacher can't hear him. I don't know if that's my child, if that's the teacher, or if that's the computer. But that is very frustrating for him, it's very frustrating for me, and it's certainly a failure here. Another thing that I wanted to address here tonight, last session, at the last meeting, Leah made a very impassioned speech in regards to community, and that this school is a part of the community. Let me tell you what I observed about community here. The community held the fall festival shortly after the school shut down. The community is now advertising for Santa, breakfast with Santa at the community center. The community allowed children in high school to have a school dance at the community center. I am not condemning any one of those activities. Those are all special activities, but the fact that we are shutting down our schools, and that is going on, probably our community has some bad priorities here, and it's very frustrating to watch this. You know, I also want you to take a look forward in our community and what it looks like, not just today, not tomorrow, and not during the time of the virus, because we are going to get past this virus. It's real, I acknowledge that, but we will get past it. So what is our community going to look like when the children here are all adult members of this community? Because right now, they are not learning, they are not socializing, and their mental health is very poor. You need to start educating them and getting them back into normal routines, because these are the people who are going to be members of this community going forward. Thank you.
Michelle? Is there a Michelle there? Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to address you today. As you already know, my 11-year-old daughter has pre-existing conditions which make her vulnerable to COVID. After addressing the board on October 15th, I had wrongly expected that the school boards would unanimously protect our students and teachers along with the entire Oak Creek community. Instead, I witnessed a divisive display meant to pit neighbor against neighbor. Some of the board's comments from the October meeting were truly disturbing and reflected gross negligence for the safety and well-being of the people you are supposed to protect. My comments today are to respond to some members' baseless assertions. First, the burn rate. There is a substantial difference between a burn rate of 1 versus 4,000. The number is relevant, reflecting the volume of COVID in the community, which is now beyond critical levels. Our burn rate as of Friday was 1,075, just shy of tripling in 3 short weeks. The Franklin School District chose to stay open with 5-day in-person. We now have the luxury of seeing the direct consequences of their decision. They now have 935 of their students in quarantine, representing 25% of the students in their district. Robinwood, an elementary school off of Drexel here, has 41.2% of their elementary students now in quarantine. With only 62 active cases, Franklin has been unable to timely contact trace. And on Saturday, they announced that they were closing their high school due to their positivity rate now exceeding 3%. Second, the death rate. The COVID death rate in Wisconsin, if you do the math, is 0.87%, which some board members have described as low and immaterial. This district has 7,500 students and staff. This would equate to about 65 deaths on average, and an unquantifiable number of people suffering future medical conditions. When anyone, including a school district, acts negligently and demonstrates a careless disregard for public safety, there is liability to both the district and personally to individual board members. Board members make public comments at these meetings, such as, "Let's throw open the doors and see what happens." This reflects an attitude of gross negligence, demonstrating a clear disregard for the safety of others. At the October board meeting, we were informed of the first student-to-student infection occurring on school district property. Please let this be the first and only instance instead of the first of many. While some of you do not appear to care about public health, I'm hoping that you do care about your pocketbooks and the potential for liability. As you know, medical bills are expensive, not to mention compensatory and punitive damages. Please be responsible and protect our students and staff. Thank you.
Adam?
I came more prepared this time. I wrote my stuff down.
Just, you got 3 minutes, so,
Don't worry.
okay.
All right. Yeah, appreciate everybody's comments, and this is all good data and all good to take in. And appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I just have a couple of questions with regard to COVID. Discussion points more or less too. And I say all this realizing that the hospitalization rate COVID cases is like somewhere around 20% in Wisconsin today. And, that is reaching like a significant portion of hospitalizations in Wisconsin. So I understand like the context of that is where we're at today. But I just want to make these points for going forward. So I just want to know, and there was some comments about how closely we're working with the health department in Oak Creek to make decisions about the community, not just the school district, and I don't need to go further into that. The reason I ask this is because the reason I ask this is the data shows far more risk to elderly people with comorbidities or young people with comorbidities than to school-age kids and even our teachers, who all, by the way, have the option to opt out of in-person school if they are concerned with health risks, such as your daughter, which I respect. My point is that I guess we're doing, what we're doing as a community to protect the at-risk people, groups, while still allowing our economy and education strategy to move forward. Realize that the state and county may trump, no name dropping here, our community-based decisions, but I feel like we should have a plan and a reason behind that plan. Also, COVID-19 remains the 8th highest cause of death in the state. That's not to diminish or neglect those numbers, but my point is that we have many health issues that we are losing more people to than COVID. So why does our focus seem to solely be on COVID-19 remediation? Nationwide data shows significant increase in suicide rates, mental health issues, as some have spoken about tonight. And that's consistent with what Dane County released last month when they reported a 100% increase of suicide rates since COVID-19 occurred in this country. Where do we consider the cost benefit of staying at home, doing school, knowing that there are other things at play in kids' health? Though hard at times, I know my kids are well supported at home, but many are not. School is their support for emotional, physical, and educational well-being. Furthermore, the burden rate was mentioned as well. The Oak Creek burden rate did not seem to coincide with being in person versus virtual, nor did Franklin's for that matter, who has been in person since day one, as we all know. I guess my point is that in person didn't seem to move the needle up, nor did we move the needle back down by going virtual here in Oak Creek or statewide. What is virtual school gaining us, since it doesn't seem to suppress the infection rate, especially in comparison to a school district right next door like Franklin? Thank you. I'll forward you all the graphs comparing time lapses of Oak Creek and Franklin just as a visual demonstration, but they track exactly the same. Thanks.
Any more questions? Excuse me, I got one more. Julianne.
Hello. And I do mean no disrespect to people that do have at-risk family members. Again, I would like to point out that the risk for the option for virtual learning was open to everyone. So I wasn't going to speak tonight, and then two things happened which changed my mind. The first thing that happened was the CDC announcement last Monday that gave permission for people with active COVID infections to go vote in person, with a mask, of course. If the CDC thinks that this was safe to do with mitigating factors, there is no reason why my high school age children cannot sit in school twice a week for in-person hybrid learning. My high school age kids who have zero COVID symptoms, there is zero reason that this could not happen with mitigating factors, knowing positive people were given permission to go out and vote. Why is this important? Why do I come here along with other groups of parents? Again, I hate public speaking. I'm shaking right now. Why do we continue to push this message forward? Because of the second thing that occurred today. I could cry. Today, my daughter and I had an in-person CAP conference with Mrs. Farnsworth, a guidance counselor at the high school. I've never met her. She was super nice, and she had really great, she's a wealth of knowledge for kids preparing to go to college. Her second sentence today, unsolicited, literally said hi to her. Hi, how you doing? She said to me, I have no idea why she said it. She said she has done more suicide risk assessments by telephone in September than in her entire collective career as a guidance counselor. That instantly made me well up with tears. That is a problem. It is your job as a school board to create the best learning environment for our students. And as far as high schoolers are concerned, I will tell you, it is not virtual learning. Our kids are in the midst of a political situation. I have said it from day one. I can go to my first email to you in August. I felt it in my gut, in my core, and I still feel it today. COVID has become extremely political. It is real. It is dangerous. I'm sorry for people that lost lives. I am, but this is not a doable situation. If voters can go out with a mask and vote with an active COVID infection, our government says so, our kids who are asymptomatic can sit in school with a mask on. I don't even want to start an argument about what other districts are doing. We've never compared ourselves to other districts. I'll tell you what though, the other districts that were open and then now just shut down, those children are leaps and bounds ahead of the children in Oak Creek.
I don't have any more request forms. Anybody else that would like to address the board?
We do have one more.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I sent my form in online this morning. I don't know if that's...
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Oak Creek Franklin School Board members, Superintendent Unardle, Assistant Superintendent Kaczmarek. I would not want to be in your position. This is a challenging time to be in leadership. You are our voice. You are the people we chose to represent us. So it is important for our leadership to do exactly that and consider all those involved, the parents, the students, the staff. We need to start looking at district burden rates as well as the burdens we are putting on our families, students, and staff. Most Oak Creek Franklin School District parents wanted their children in school. That is not what was decided on our behalf. Most children just learn best with trained staff. The parents also know what they need to do. They need to go to work and make an income to support their children. But now they have to choose between a job and childcare. Unfortunate as it may sound, but elementary schools are also childcare facilities. Another unfortunate truth is that most of the facilities in the city and surrounding cities are full to capacity and cannot accept any more children. Our schools, on the other hand, are only allowing 30 students in their buildings. There are empty classrooms with no teachers in them, empty rooms like libraries and gyms that could be used to help more families. If we are not going to open schools, we need to open up more seats in our school day camps. We could let middle school and high school be hybrid or remote and allow elementary to be open. Just quarantining the classrooms that need to be contained, not an entire district. The Europeans have figured it out. They have closed everything but the essentials. Hospitals, groceries, and schools. Why have we not figured this out? Do we not think there will be long-term effects on these children? Our students have lost a year of education and are trying to learn from home or daycares under pressure and without adult supervision in most cases. Staff is exhausted, the back and forth, with no transparency, lack of communication, and trying to make up for what children didn't learn from missed school. The surprise board meetings and unshared information, why? Uninformed just creates confusion and anxiety. There have not been enough pat on the backs and well dones or keep it ups for them from administration or board members. The staff are exhausted just like everyone else. They may be superheroes to our kids and families, but why is leadership not encouraging, reassuring, and communicating with them? Staff are in a bind too. Staff with young children or special needs need childcare too. Why is there no notification sent to staff for camp registration and only to Aspire families? Why were staff given a weekend to find childcare? We need our staff. We cannot afford to lose more staff. We don't want them to have to choose between work and their children. We are short-staffed and possibly for some of these reasons. All right. I just want to say thank you, but please reconsider the risk.
Anybody else who'd like to address the board?
Guys, welcome to the speakers this evening.
All right, thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone, for your comments, and appreciate your feedback. We're going to reconvene the formal portion of the meeting for board discussion or action. Under action item, we have dashboard update, phase review, and discussion.
All right, thank you, Board President Carini. So here we are. It's November 9th, the first full week of the second quarter. Here we are. The board adopted metrics from the Milwaukee County regional health officers way back in August. It seems like an eternity ago now. We opened virtually. The health officers came back and updated their guidance, and we adopted those. Those are linked in the body of the situation report that I'm speaking off of here. And that resulted in us opening hybrid for a brief time, all too brief. Followed by the spike we're currently finding ourselves in, which, as everybody knows, we had a vote on and we went back virtual, and that's where we find ourselves today. Right? The dashboard that we started with is updated each Friday. Right now, the threshold for phase 2 is set at 350, and we currently stand at 1075, which has been noted already by others. I'm not going to spend any time discussing that very simple dashboard. That's easy to understand and linked in these documents. But this evening, the City of Oak Creek health officer is going to join us. She's on the call right now to be able to answer any questions you may have for her. Welcome, Darcy. We're glad you're here with us tonight. During those brief weeks we were open in hybrid, we learned a few things. We had some challenges and some successes. Mr. Thielen or Mr. Krennick is going to talk about those a little bit this evening too. Assistant Superintendent Kotarek is going to talk about our monitoring dashboards and explain how that process works exactly. And we will talk about some scenarios that the board may want to consider in the future at subsequent meetings, sooner or later. Some hypothetical human resources situations, some IT infrastructure situations that there have been some questions about. And we're going to talk a little bit about families and staff too. So I'll work through this methodically, and I'll ask other speakers to share throughout questions and comments, things like that. I'll ask for them as we kind of go along here, okay? Okay. So as you're all aware, our main dashboard sits where it sits. We update that each week with information from the Medical College of Wisconsin's epidemiology team. So I'm going to ask first Assistant Superintendent Kotarek to spend a little bit of time with us talking about our monitoring dashboard. And later on, I'll talk about some modifications we could make to it subsequently down the road. So Bridget, if you could talk about our local experience with that, how it's been updated as time has gone by, what we've learned, just give us a sense of your work with it, please.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure. Can you hear me now? Okay. No. Unmuted.
So we're going to take just a second, and IT Director Bennett will join us, or we'll get the IT rolling here. So stretch your legs, and take a breath, and we'll get to it in a second here.
No? Can anybody hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay. Can you hear me? Really? What about now? Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Ryan. Okay, sorry about that. So part of our work here continues to be daily collaboration with both our building administration and extremely close collaboration with the health department. So although we are not having students in the building, we still continue to receive daily updates from the health department. And so those are coming in daily, including at least once over the weekend on Sunday evenings. And those come from one of Darcy's assistants, who is our main point person at the health department. So each day at the district office, I'm receiving daily updates from the health department, and sometimes midday updates. And that was something I noticed over the last couple of weeks when our point of contact, Emma, has emailed saying, here's your midday update. And so in that information, the health department shares with us new positive cases that they are aware of, which would include staff who are Oak Creek residents and then district students, with information regarding their dates of isolation and quarantine. Also included in those daily updates are students who have been identified by the health department as close contacts of a positive individual. So they share with us information regarding their dates of quarantine. Building principals continue to communicate with us at the district office as well, because they're receiving a lot of communication from families as well. So we have really open communication with a lot of our families who are continuing to call our school staff and their building principals when they learn of their own health situation or that of their students. So they're self-reporting it at the school level. And then oftentimes we're collaborating with the health department when we receive information to share that with them. And also our staff recently, not recently, actually throughout this whole school year have been very open and communicative with us about their own situation. So we are also receiving timely communication from our staff, whether it be a classroom teacher, an aide, a buildings and grounds employee, a food service employee, sharing with us information about their own health. Many more staff are experiencing COVID-like symptoms, and they are responding per the protocol that we've asked them to. They're also sharing with us when their children need to quarantine or are positive, if they themselves are positive, and then we are guiding and working with them and Human Resources, Troy and Sonia, and their building principal to give staff guidance on their need to quarantine or isolate at home. So, I'd like to thank our staff for that open communication with us. I feel like they're really entrusting important information with us and trusting the guidance that we're giving them. And so throughout the day, it's this sharing of information and kind of monitoring number of active cases, number of students in quarantine, so that at any moment we know kind of what is current and accurate information among our district staff and our students.
We belabor this here for a couple of reasons. One, were we to modify this at some point down the road, right, this dashboard becomes more and more important, right? Because when I referenced earlier that we might have to do some, we're going to talk about some hypothetical human resources situations, it would build onto this dashboard. It becomes very important. And I think some may have thought that we have paused in updating this document because of our current instructional status, but it continues. Right, it continues. And you'll also notice that, if you're an avid consumer of news and you hear about other school districts making decisions about what phase of instruction they're in, they vary wildly in how many cases may lead to a pivot to 2 weeks of closure or a change. It's just different situationally, and I wanted to make sure that people had this in front of them, saw the breakdown, and I'll project it again when we talk about any changes we could potentially talk about making to it down the road based on comments various people have made over the weeks. So we just wanted to give you a sense of what that looked like even when we're in virtual learning. Okay.
And the monitoring dashboard that Andy's showing you right now is updated as of today, right before this meeting. So typically we just update that on Fridays, but given this meeting, we wanted to kind of show you an accurate picture for today. So as today, we have our highest number of student active cases. So between Sunday and today, we were notified of 7 new positive students, 3 high school, 3 elementary, and 1 middle school student. And so those numbers are for today, and then we'll update it for Friday as well.
Can I ask questions now, or do you want to wait?
So you might want me to cover the various aspects of this and we can return to things. We're not in a big hurry, right? So I just don't want to answer a number of your questions later on in the presentation and then we're all talking over each other for forever and ever. So if you just want to hold your question on this.
Absolutely.
For example, we have Darcy on the call right now, and I thought it might be helpful if she share kind of a current state of affairs, any updates that might be relevant for us. If she has any comments about contact tracing or her work with our staff, it would be a good moment to talk about that. And like I said, I'll circle back around to this dashboard and kind of incorporate some of the ideas some of you have floated at various meetings or in conversations. So, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So, Darcy, are you with us right now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so would you like to take a minute or two and just update the board and any folks who might be watching or listening on the current state of affairs, contact tracing, things in the community, and I imagine the board will have a couple questions for you, if you would, please.
Sure. Thanks for having me tonight.
Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
So as we've already heard, we are obviously seeing our busiest time with COVID that we've seen yet in the pandemic. We are currently averaging about 39 new positive cases per day. About a month ago, it was around 8 or 9 cases per day. So we've seen a serious increase over the past month. As a result of that, we have had to alter our contact tracing practices. We have had to redirect all of our resources to notifying and interviewing our positive cases, which means that we are no longer able to call and notify any contacts, anyone who's been exposed. So previously, when we spoke with a positive case, they would inform us who their contacts were, and then we would call each of those contacts to talk through quarantine, provide information, and answer questions. At this point, we are asking people who test positive to notify their own contacts because we just do not have the capacity to call those contacts any longer. So we know that people who test positive are willing and have the ability to do that with varying degrees of success. We know that this is not ideal and that this is not the best way to slow or stop the spread of disease. But in spite of having tripled our staff, we just don't have the staff to do the volume of workload that we currently have. Additionally, we have developed a prioritization of positive cases. Because we're having so many come in each day, we can't get through that large number of positive cases each day. So we are prioritizing individuals under the age of 19 and individuals ages 65 and older. We're calling those individuals who test positive first to make sure that we get the information. The reason we're focusing on the younger group is to make sure that we do have the information for any students who might be in school or any kind of sports or activities or in a child care center. We want to make sure that we know about that and that we notify them as soon as possible. Of course, including the older adults, as we know that they tend to be highest risk, and we want to make sure that we're offering the support that they might need to successfully navigate COVID. And then, as time allows, we are still notifying individuals in that middle group, ages 19 to 64, but it's taking us longer to make that phone call to them, which means it's taking us longer to explain isolation and quarantine and for them to notify their contacts. And we are doing a shortened interview with those individuals as well. So we're not collecting as much data. We're not able to spend as long on the phone with them, answering questions and providing information as we had previously. We're doing as much as we can in the time that we have. Unfortunately, what that means is that within that 19 to 64 age group, we know that that is probably the large majority of parents of school-age children as well as teachers. And because we don't know which of them might be a parent or teacher, we're not able to prioritize that way. So it just means that we're getting the information later than we used to, and it's taking us longer to provide that information to the school than it used to as well. I'm happy to answer any questions, or I can stay on the line to answer questions later. Or if there's anything else you wanted me to speak to right now, I can do that as well.
Darcy, why don't we take some questions for you at this point, because we're going to go to a bunch of different topic areas. So if the board has questions for you right now, we could do that. I know you're joining us from home, and we appreciate that. So if we just want to ask any questions of her, she could drop off the call if she wanted to.
I'll start. Darcy, thanks again for all of the stuff that you and your department are doing. How likely are you worried at all about cases not being reported to you? I mean, do you think that's prevalent? We hear about it, anecdotally, that people aren't calling in because they don't think their kid really has it, so they don't want to get them tested, things of that nature. Do you think or see that that's an issue?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think, we certainly get anyone who is tested, we get those lab results. But what we know from our percent positive being as high as it is that even though we're doing a lot of testing, a lot of those individuals are still testing positive, and that tells us that there are likely many more individuals in the community who are positive who are not being tested. And so, we've known that all along, that not everyone chooses to get tested, and it certainly is not a requirement, but I would expect that just given the increased number of cases in the community, there's also an increased number of untested individuals who are positive.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I got a question. Darcy, so you're saying everyone reports if they go get tested to the health department of Cedar Creek. So the people, I'm just going to throw this out there, Pick and Save, Target, Woodman's, Myers, the bars, the restaurants, if someone tests positive there, they report that to the city, correct? And then do you guys take any action on going to that business and saying, hey, you got to shut down, because they're dealing with thousands of people a day. And if there's one or two that are positive and we're dealing with those people, what is our City of Oak Creek Health Department doing about that?
Sure. So when someone tests positive, just so I want to make sure that I'm clear, the lab who runs the test is the one who reports the result to us, and then we make contact with the person who was tested. So as part of the interview that we do with them, we do ask them where they work, if they have any children in school or daycare, or if they participate in activities, things like that, and then we do our best to make contact with their workplace or their child's school or daycare to make sure they understand that that person should not be there, or that they and they need to identify close contacts and that they should quarantine. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but you're not shutting them down. That's what I'm getting to.
No, we're not. We have not shut any businesses or places down. So I would say for the large part, workplaces are very cooperative. So if we call and say that a person who works there tested positive, it's in their best interest to identify close contacts and remove them from the workplace during the quarantine period, because they don't want to have a lot of cases there. So we haven't had many issues working with employers or any other community partners around isolation and quarantine.
Yeah, my whole point about that was if you go through the grocery line or bar or restaurant, someone has it, they pass it on to you as a customer. Obviously, most likely you don't know you got it from that person, because they're not going to trace you down because they really don't know who you are. So basically, it's just out there where you really don't know where you get it. Just good hygiene and wear your mask.
Right. I think with the level of disease in our community, it's very hard to identify where anyone is being exposed. So I think right now our recommendation would really be to assume that anytime you leave your house, you have the potential to be exposed. So we certainly want people to wear their masks and practice distancing and like you said, good hand hygiene. But there are a lot of risk right now just being outside of your home.
Darcy, I have a kind of question. I guess it is a question, but it's a little bit, I don't know, I'll just ask. So one of the gentlemen who spoke tonight mentioned, that the burden rate in Franklin is similar to the burden rate in Oak Creek at their schools up until Friday, were, all open full time. Obviously, the number of positive cases in their district and the number of kids in quarantine in their district is considerably higher than we were, but I would have thought that their burden rate would be higher with all of their schools open 5 days face to face. Can you speak at all to, and I know I'm asking you to probably use your best guess to, why their burden rate as a city wouldn't have been even higher than ours with them being open 5 days a week?
Yeah, I think that's, like you said, it's really hard to answer that question. I don't know a lot about the distribution of cases in Franklin or anything really much at all. So, I think the burden rates are very similar. There's not a significant difference between them. And it's hard to say exactly, what explains that. I think so, we have not seen, and I think other districts have found the same thing, is that, we're not seeing a lot of they may not be seeing a lot of spread between students in school settings. But again, I think the concern when the burden rate gets as high is that so many people in the community have it, that navigating who should be out on isolation and quarantine and determining that in a timely manner and making sure that you have enough staffing becomes the issue. So again, I can't speak to the distribution of Franklin's cases at this point.
So would that be the same kind of answer for why we're seeing, we've been off out like almost 3 weeks or 3 weeks now virtual, and it hasn't made a difference in the burden rate of our community. And so there's some people that say, well, then since it's not making a difference, we could bring our kids back in. Would your answer that to Jane's question kind of be the same thing?
Yeah, I think at this point we would not recommend that anyone gather with anyone outside of their home. I think given the high number of cases. So, I would say, the school is certainly bringing together gatherings of people. We don't recommend family gatherings. We don't recommend, it's just, there's a high probability of exposure with any type of gathering at this point.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you
Darcy,
very
I
much,
have a,
Darcy.
wait. I have a quick question. It's pretty straightforward. I'm looking at the city dashboard. It's just not loading. I don't know why. So I'm assuming that it's probably the internet. But could you just remind us what the positivity rate currently is for Oak Creek?
Sure. Our current 14-day positivity rate is 18.6%.
Thank you.
I have a quick question as well. Would you consider taking like community volunteers to help you do contact tracing? Because it sounds like you're understaffed and not able to provide as much as you'd like to.
Unfortunately, we're not able to use volunteers for contact tracing, just given the sensitive and confidential nature of the work. We have had many generous people offer, but that's just not something that we're able to do.
Hey, Darcy, I got a question. This is Frank. So, if I heard you right, you're recommending that people should not leave their homes or go outside, correct? Because of
right, we would recommend avoiding gathering with people not from your household as much as possible.
So, what was your conversation with two other school districts, two other schools in Oak Creek that are wide open and in person 5 days a week?
We've made the same recommendations to all of the schools here in Oak Creek. So obviously each of them can make their own decision.
And they still remain open. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions for Darcy while she's on the line with us here?
Maybe one last, Darcy, on cases that come from outside, like college kids that get diagnosed and at their college, let's say Madison. Does that go under the Madison rate, or does it come under where the child resides when they're not in school?
It would be counted in the jurisdiction where the person currently lives. So if they're a student at UW-Madison, they would likely live in Madison or Dane County, and that case would be counted there.
Okay. And does that go, same thing for like hospitalization, since Oak Creek doesn't have any hospitals directly in the city limits? Do we record hospitalizations?
Right, so what we report on our dashboard is the number of Oak Creek residents who have been hospitalized at any time during the course of their COVID illness. If you look at the Milwaukee County dashboard with that indicator around hospital care, that is for all of the Milwaukee County hospitals.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Just for the board, as an FYI, Franklin's burden rate is 452.
Well, but they don't figure it the same way we do.
That's correct. They do not. So the epidemiology team that calculates the burden rates across the county, their burden rate for Franklin is 950.
Yeah.
And that's calculated the same way as ours. So that's the one that I would compare because they have the same calculation.
And there's still elementary schools open in Franklin. Just 2 are shut down and 1 high school for 14 days.
Okay, I'm going to go a little bit out of order here because I think it makes sense to keep talking about the site-based dashboard and potential modifications for it at some point for the board to consider and what that would look like practically. So Andy's got that up on the big screen, and I'm going to take if you'd allow me the liberty, like I'll take the health information we've just discussed, and I'd like you to just put it on a shelf. And I'd like you to think about this dashboard from a pure human resources and staffing point of view. It might be just an intellectual activity, but I just want to talk for a moment about the practical nature of doing something like internal on this dashboard, what it would look like and feel like here in the district. So take everything we've just talked about community health, public health, set it here in your mind, and we'll talk about this for a second, what this could potentially look like.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And if I'm not making sense, you can stop me and I'll back up. I really want people to understand what this would look like if the board started modifying these elements, okay? All right, so I know that many of you have taken taken your time and looked at other districts' dashboards. Like some of them are very similar to ours, others are very different, quite granular. There's a lot of commonalities between them, but just different districts made different choices about what goes where and why. Okay. So at the end of the day, if you're going to do a site-based dashboard, so for example, if we were going to take all that we've done, set it aside, and say, what do you need to be able to run? Right? And that's our scorecard. Right? So just think about that for a moment from pure staffing perspective. So you see each of our schools stacked right there. And regardless of what any given school may choose to report and monitor, right? For example, there are neighboring districts who calculate their own in-building positivity rate, right? Or districts that calculate their own daily average attendance. There's neighboring districts that say, this is our percentage of available staff, where they'll pull out anyone that's in any way been affected by COVID, and they'll hand calculate a different number, right? Or different districts will calculate whole county numbers, or they'll use their municipality. Or if you go further into northern Wisconsin, where you don't have a community health director, you have to use a whole county. Or you're even shorter staffed or less communicative with the public health authority, and you end up just using, this is my one building school district, here's the numbers we have, here's the amount of substitutes we have, here's when we're open, here's when we're not. Like, very simple, right? So I know a lot of you have taken a look at these different pieces and talked about them to me or to other people, asked a lot of questions. But if you ask me from my years in operations, when we talk about what's the staffing model we need to run, if you boil it all down, the thing that hurts us the most from a pure, do we have people in front of our kids point of view, are the quarantines, right? The duration of the quarantine is very long, right? And often we have to get quite creative to be able to cover that quarantine, whether we're in session or not. So those 3 weeks we were in hybrid, we did a bunch of creative things. Like you might have seen on TV, a neighboring district was highlighted for teachers teaching from their home. Maybe some of you saw this on Channel 6 or 12 or something. Well, we've been doing that for quite a while too, right? So if a teacher's quarantined and they're able to instruct, they may very well instruct from their home, and we'll have a different supervisory model in that classroom, right? But you still need someone who's certified or someone who's one of our employees who we can move over into that room to cover that space. So it gets to be a human resources shell game, which makes it difficult to apply an exact percentage to each of our buildings throughout the district, because we can do a lot of creative things. Like, for example, reassign aides from throughout the district, or reassign central office folks. What we've also done is use our leadership teams at each building, or our people services teams. And while none of that is ideal, it's what the lengths this district has gone to be able to cover classes and to continue to provide instruction without the safety and mitigation pieces beginning to break down. Okay, because that's the distinction. Like when you see a neighboring district announce that they had to close XYZ elementary school for X number of days, it's, you no longer have the staffing that can endure to maintain your mitigation practices. Because in different years, when we would be unable to fill a sub, right, we might do something different, like combine a class for a day or a section, so we could keep things rolling. But that's not an option available to us in COVID era, because the thing we want to ultimately do is avoid having to quarantine large swaths of students, right? So you have to keep them cohorted. This is an elementary example right now. It's really different when the kids get older and you're in an 8-period day and you're place to place to place, potentially around 100 or 200 kids in a given day. So to take one quick step back here, some districts might use the contact tracing turnaround time. Like you'll see that on some of the neighbors' districts. That's a valid measurement, because you need to know the success of your contact tracing, so you know like how many kids are going to end up quarantined and how much longer we can endure in a successful environment where our mitigation practices aren't breaking down. So one thing we may add to this dashboard right here is, are we able to effectively contact trace in a short period of time? Right, and you could show that in a green light, red light model. So that might be something I suggest at some point down the road we add to this document. That's one. Another one would be those HR target staffing numbers at each site, which if you chose to modify this at some point down the road, you'd have to give the district some level of operational authority over, because you can't just say all elementary schools must be running at 95% and all middle schools must be running at 95% staffing, because we can transfer people around, right? So you put things in place, but we would ultimately have to be able to continue to run while maintaining mitigation standards. So if you take one of our elementary schools, for example, if we're running 5% down, that's a problem. If we're 10% down, it's a major problem. And if we're 15% down as a general rule, that would mean that everything's breaking down. So if you're at an elementary school and we have 5 unfilled positions, just as a general rule, that's going to make it really hard to maintain standards for safety. And that's what you'd see in neighboring areas where, okay, we have to close X school for 14 days. Right, that's what this would functionally become. It would become a human resources dashboard where each elementary school, we'd be measuring how many staff members could we be out, how many middle school staff members could we be out, how many high school staff members could we be out. And those numbers would go up at each site, but as a general percentage, it would hold roughly firm. But we wouldn't have an exact cut line. Like, for example, right now, 350 burden rate is an exact cut line. Is that making sense? Because we'd be able to transfer some personnel, right? We'd be able to be creative, but at some point with the number of quarantines or positive cases, right, you're going to reach a measure where you can't maintain safety anymore. And that's what you see in other places that have site-based measures.
Would that be dependent upon the size of the building? Like, Shephard Hills is our largest elementary school. So would it be a percentage?
So Shepherd likely has a break-even point that's higher than one of the smaller schools, right? Just from a pure human resources point of view. Just like East would be able to be down more numbers than West, because it's a much larger facility. High school is 122 or so teachers at that building any given day, right? And what happens at the high school, which becomes very problematic, is we're short subs almost all the time in that building, even in good years. And most substitutes, or the most frequently occurring substitute you're going to find is a retired teacher. Right. So that further draws down that pool. So what happens at the high school is teachers cover other classes, right, internally, which adds a vector of potential additional quarantines, which is what we began to see, which meant the high school, in very short order, had a great deal more folks on quarantine than you'd find at an elementary school where the cohorts are much tighter. Right. So it gets more problematic as the kids have increasing contact with one another as they get older. Right? Nothing we haven't seen play out in neighboring communities. So like I said, there's the disease portion of this, which Darcy spoke to a few minutes ago, and then there's the brass tacks of human resources coverage that most of these monitoring dashboards that you see in neighboring districts, it speaks to that element, right? So in neighboring districts that I'll talk to, they'll say, well, we took program support and pupil services and a whole bunch of folks who are out of district or they're working in the front office in places, or aides who have certification, and they use them to cover teachers' classes, right? That's the patchwork that we did when we were hybrid. That's the patchwork we do now, and that's the patchwork you find throughout the state and the country right now. So were you to at some point direct administration to do site-based dashboards, that's where the rubber meets the road. Like, when do you no longer have enough staff to maintain standards? And that's going to vary a little bit site to site. And the board would have to be comfortable with us making some internal decisions about that. And assigning durations of closures to different classes and different schools if we were ever at that point. So hypothetically, you could have 4 of your elementary schools running and 3 of them closed for varying durations of time. Right? And that's what you see in other places around the state. Who have site-based dashboards. Often they'll have breakpoints where it'll trip the whole district, right? And some of our neighbors haven't met those yet, and hopefully they don't. Right? But that's what it would look like functionally. We'd find ourselves in a situation where this dashboard you're looking at here grows a little bit, right, in categories that we're looking at. But what we'd be doing is creative solutions to continue to remain open, right? Now, is the likelihood that this will deteriorate quickly when there's a great deal of disease in the community higher? Well, I mean, you don't need a statistician to talk about that. It's just like anything else in our community. If it's outside, it comes in and we work through it in our schools, right? So at a time when there's a lot of COVID circulating, is the likelihood that we're going to be able to open and endure for a long period of time higher or lower? Right now, I'm not a statistician, but you can answer that for yourselves, right? So there are more ideal and less ideal times to walk down that road. Those are decisions that the board makes, and we do our best to carry out. So that's kind of how this meets what you've seen in other places, and those are the modifications we'd ultimately look to make. You'd make some staffing-based categorical decisions that would complement this existing document. So you all know back when we exceeded 350 and the board voted to close the district and transition back to phase 1, a couple of our elementary schools were doing better than some of our other sites, right? High school, middle schools, and Power, they were in a different place than a couple of our elementary schools, right? So if you were in a place where you were doing site-based dashboards, like I said before, you'd have some that continued to open and operate, all kind of on different calendars. And that's logistically very challenging, but others have found ways to do that. And the people around here, if that was the direction of the board, would work their tails off to make that work as long as they could, as best they could. But you'd have to understand that we'd be making decisions operationally, if that makes sense. Okay,
So obviously-
I bounced around quite a bit, but if you have questions on those changes, it's a great time.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously then at an elementary school where we have cohorted students, if a student tests positive, there's a likelihood that there's just one teacher that they may have come in contact with, whereas in the high school, if a student tests positive, you could have 7 teachers that have come in contact with that individual. So from an ease of staffing, chances are it's easier at the elementary school than it is at the middle or the high school.
It certainly grows much more complicated at the higher levels, right? Just think back to your kid's experience or your own. It's a real different day, so it's a real different day.
Okay.
I think I hit all the points on that. So if at some point the board was interested in seeing a further fleshed out site-based dashboard, those are some of the elements you'd see. Like I would recommend duration of contact tracing in the community. That's something we'd get from Darcy. So how many days is it taking to contact trace? And then we'd also have like a relative range of staffing requirements that we'd need to be able to choose to act on here in district, if that's something you did at some point down the road. Amy, were you raising your hand?
I was. Didn't we hear though right now that Darcy's not doing the contact tracing?
You did hear her explain like how challenging contact tracing is right now. So for example, if there was like a color-coded band on here, like a traffic stoplight, right? We wouldn't be in the green is good category for contact tracing just because of how heavy things are right now. But that doesn't mean it's going to be this way forever, right? We don't know if we're through this spike or if we're starting to turn a corner here. We just have to keep our eye on it closely. But I would recommend if the board were to make some site-based changes, contact tracing matters. So that'd be something we looked at. You see that on a lot of districts that have site-based dashboards.
When we were open and in person, were we doing our own internal contact tracing?
Bridget, could you elaborate for Amy on what exactly like our staff contributes to the contact tracing puzzle?
Yes, pretty much when we would learn of a positive student, either from like a parent notification, sometimes older students are self-disclosing to coaches or advisors, or if we learn of it from the health department at that time, we were doing all of the contact tracing for the school contacts. And so the health department would say, please complete contact tracing for anyone who had contact with the student, and they would give us the date range or the single date depending on the onset of symptoms. And then our principals primarily, and at the high school also including Scott Holler, were conducting that contact tracing themselves. So talking to teachers, asking teachers to think about, look at your seating chart, who would you identify of having been 15 or more minutes within 6 feet of the student, including yourself, the principals, and athletic directors are interviewing students, to talking to them about passing time, lunches, athletic buses, club times. And so they were conducting that process internally to determine, here's the list of close contacts. And then once those students were identified, calling the students to the main office at the high school and calling their families, making sure to make voice-to-voice contact with those families. And then we would work together, and I would support them in sending out the follow-up written communication. And the same thing was happening at the elementary schools. They were still making sure they talked to the classroom teacher, making a determination together with staff if it was an entire elementary school or classroom or some students who had a quarantine, double checking with daycares, other times in the student's day, who are those contact tracers. I would say, especially at the high school level, it was pretty much consuming most of the work Candace Mongan, our high school principal, was doing for several weeks. And I appreciated that she wanted to ensure that was done correctly, but I do know that was pretty much all the work that Candace was doing, and then trying to, I know, fit in some of her classroom observations of staff. But I assume that that's what would happen. At whatever point we return to in-person, that we would assume that heavy burden again, just because the health department does not have the capacity to do that. And I assume it would be just as much time, if not more. I was going to say, it'd have to be more. But that was when it was at 4:30 and lower. So, yeah, so that was a job that we'd figure out, and our office staff were helpful as well.
So now I know why our quarantine numbers are so low, because the city's not able to keep up with it, right?
Well, and you have to remember too, Amy, that not being in session changes the number of individuals anybody's going to bump into, right? So we're home right now. It's a whole different ball game if you're in session. I know you've seen some pretty staggering quarantine numbers from some schools around Wisconsin. You can see like how that happens really quickly. Like Darcy gave an example of like a business to Darren's question earlier in the meeting, in the same way like a local business would hop to and try to coordinate this so that you could tie it off as quick as you could so you could keep running your business. That's been the experience of our kind of extended leadership teams at our sites, if that makes sense.
Just for reference, 3 weeks ago, which was approximately our last full week, we had 249 students in quarantine versus the 133 that was done as of this afternoon.
So to kind of tie a bow on this portion of the conversation, like if you're able to backfill behind staffing quarantines, it makes a big difference, right? So if our subfill rate is high, that's very valuable to us. Subfill rates this year have hovered around 50%, right? So we end up doing a lot of internal covering, which adds up quickly when people end up in quarantine. So that's the principal issue confronting us from a human resources point of view. It's you just end up with a lot of people in quarantine when there's a lot of COVID in the community, and that's kind of how things kind of begin to break down.
And what's the I mean, I know we're not in school right now, but what's the sub shortage rate? Like, I mean, how is teachers on call? I mean, the last time we met, they were like 50%, they could meet 50%.
Beyond sharing that we're around 50%, that's the best I can do for you for tonight. Okay. So that's kind of been the historical, like, what's the COVID era year been like? Troy question. 50%. Okay. So,
I mean, could you would one safely assume that since the burden rate within the city is higher, that more than likely it's causing even more people to come out of the sub pool and say, I'm not gonna chance it anymore because they may be sick or they may be,
I think it's hard to say, like, I don't know how people make their decisions, like you've heard Troy come in here and talk about how we're creative at trying to attract subs.
Right.
I think that 50% number as a general point of discussion is one you could hold in your head. But at the end of the day, if the board put a site-based dashboard in place, that factor would matter, but ultimately, like, what actually was happening would be the key, right? Like, the better our sub rates, the longer we could backfill behind quarantines, the longer we could potentially run, right? But at some point, when things get too heavy, when that percentage is too high, like, that's when you'd end up in a situation where X elementary school is closed for 14 days. So, okay.
Hey, Dan, real quick, I was just curious, with the Inspire program, are any of those kids' numbers on this dashboard that we're looking at?
Yeah,
and the quarantines?
Yes, they're in there, but I broke it out too because I thought you might ask. So we've got 17 students out right now who are in some form of isolation or quarantine. I got this number from Heather today. 7 staff, and there's 295 students registered, and there's 63 aides participating. So 17 kids out, 7 staff out.
Okay, so you're not just having everyone else self-isolate for 14 days then because you're in contact with that child that was at the daycare.
Yeah, and what happens is, like, for example, like if the quarantine is, sometimes we don't find out because they're so behind with contact tracing that someone's period of isolation or quarantine might be nearly up by the time we get notified too. So not all 17 of those represent 14 days out.
All right, thanks.
Did I say that right? Did I muddy over that one, or is that accurate?
No, that's accurate. The more behind the health department falls, yeah, we'll get that information later, and then sometimes kids are only quarantining. They have like 3 days less in their period of quarantine. And I think Darcy would say that that's contributing to the community spread, is that the longer it takes to notify somebody that they've had close contact, the longer they're in daycares at the basketball practice, potentially spreading the disease. And so that's that snowball effect that happens the farther they get behind, the later any of us find